Have you considered using a US LLC to buy property in Mexico? Me too, and I couldn't find too much information out there, so I did the research, I compiled it, and that's what this video is all about, how you can own property in Mexico using a US LLC. I'll take you through the legal steps, the tax implications, and the overall benefits of holding Mexican property through your LLC. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, by the way, so you don't miss any future videos about Mexico, real estate, Latin America, all that good stuff. Let's crack into it. Mexico is one of the most attractive locations for real estate investment in Latin America. Unlike properties on the coast or near the borders, where there are some restrictions on foreign ownership, many areas in Mexico don't fall within these restricted zones. Think, Mexico City, Guadalajara, anything in the center, which means that foreigners, including US LLCs, can directly own property without the need for a fideicomiso. A fideicomiso is required. Oh, by the way, a fideicomiso is a trust, a Mexican trust, and a fideicomiso is required for properties within 50 kilometers of the coast or 100 kilometers of the border. But if you're looking at land outside these zones, like Mexico City or central areas, you can bypass that step entirely. This makes the purchase much simpler and also less expensive to set up and less expensive to maintain, because there are costs associated with spinning up a fideicomiso, annual renewals of the fideicomiso, and if you ever get rid of it, there's even fees to, unwind the fideicomiso as well. If you're wondering how exactly you can set up your US LLC to own property in Mexico, keep watching. So how does this work? First and foremost, you'll be able to hold the title directly in the name of your US LLC. This is key because it streamlines ownership for businesses looking to manage properties under a corporate structure. You're not required to form a Mexican company unless you're purchasing multiple properties or conducting large-scale developments. To purchase the property, you'll go through a typical property buying process. A notary public in Mexico, who is actually more like a legal overseer in real estate transactions, will formalize the purchase. They'll ensure all the paperwork is properly handled and that the property is free of liens or disputes. So the notary in Mexico has a much larger role than a notary would in American real estate transactions. A notary is also the one that takes the biggest fee on the transfer of the property, usually anywhere from 2 to 7%, often like 4 or 5%, depends what's included. And if you're going to rent the property out, which many investors do, obviously, you'll need to register your US LLC with Mexico's tax authority, known as the SAT, the SAT, and obtain an RFC, which is like a tax ID. This will allow you to file taxes on any rental income you earn in Mexico. Okay, so in this scenario, the US LLC will have an RFC. Whereas if you bought the property in your own name, you yourself would have to have an RFC. Okay, so that's a difference. It actually kind of creates a little bit of a separation so that, so that you can sort of avoid tiptoeing your way into becoming a tax resident of Mexico as an individual person. Owning property in a foreign country comes with important tax implications. So let's break this down for both the US and Mexican taxes. In Mexico, if you're renting out the property, you're obligated to report that income to Mexican authorities, obviously. You'll be subject to both IVA or IVA, which is like the value-added tax, as well as ISR, which is income tax. Services like Airbnb are required to automatically deduct taxes from your earnings, but owning the property through a LLC can give you more control over how you file your taxes. For example, you can claim deductions for things like maintenance and other property-related expenses. Every year, you'll also need to pay the property tax, known as predial, which is generally lower in Mexico compared to the US, and honestly, like a lot lower. We're talking maybe a couple $100 a year. Rental income from a Mexican property still needs to be reported to the IRS as well, assuming you're a U.S. person, obviously, there's a couple different ways this could happen. Maybe you're a non-U.S. person with a US LLC, and maybe it's a pass-through entity, yada, yada. But I would say the most common scenario here for people watching this video is you're a U.S. person, and of course, the earnings from your Mexican properties will need to be reported to the IRS. You'll file this under Schedule E, which is supplemental income and loss. But here's the good news. You can deduct a lot more expenses when you're renting out the property. You can claim deductions for things like mortgage interest, insurance, and even property management fees. Another perk is that the taxes you pay in Mexico can often be claimed as foreign tax credits on your U.S. return, which helps prevent double taxation. Now, let's talk about why owning property through a US LLC can be advantageous. The main advantage of an LLC is liability protection. If there are any legal issues with the properties, your personal assets won't be at risk. The LLC itself would be the legal entity tied to the property. Managing property can be tough if you're an absentee owner. By using an LLC, you can easily appoint a property management company or trusted individual to handle administrative tasks like paying taxes, utilities, and even signing rental agreements on your behalf. This flexibility is a huge advantage if you're not planning to live in Mexico full-time. You can also get a power of attorney as well. When it comes time to sell the property, having it under an LLC can make things easier and more tax efficient. Instead of transferring the property itself, you can simply transfer ownership of the LLC, which could help reduce notary fees, taxes, and other transfer costs. While owning the property through a US LLC in Mexico comes with numerous benefits, there's also some things that you should be aware of as well. Always consult with a Mexican real estate attorney and accountant to make sure everything is in order. You're going to want a Mexican accountant to file things on the Mexico side for you. And if you don't know anybody, you can reach out to us at MyLatinLife. We can point you in the right direction. The laws governing property ownership can be complex, and professional advice will ensure your property complies with both Mexican and U.S. regulations. Once you own the property, there are ongoing tax filings required in both Mexico and the U.S. Be sure to maintain good records, especially for rental income and expenses, as both countries' tax authorities will expect transparency. Owning property in Mexico through a U.S. LLC can be a smart and lucrative investment. The ability to own land directly without a fideicomiso, combined with the liability protection and tax benefits of an LLC, make this a pretty compelling option for U.S. investors. Just make sure to comply with both Mexican and U.S. tax laws and get the right legal advice to make sure your investment goes as smooth as possible. And by the way, in order to close the deal, you're probably going to need your U.S. Articles of Incorporation and the other documents related to your U.S. LLC apostilled, which is a legal authentication. So make sure to do that early, because when it comes time to close the deal, if you still don't have apostilled documents, it could slow up and delay the closing of the transaction. So if you're looking at buying property with a U.S. LLC, you should buy that U.S. LLC now. You should get it set up now with the EIN, get the documents apostilled so that you're ready to go to snatch a good deal when you find one. And by the way, MyLatinLife, we can open a U.S. LLC for you. We do it for both Americans and non-U.S. citizens. So if you need help, there'll be a link in the description where you can become our client. And there should be another link as well to order your LLC with us. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you have any questions. And by the way, we made another video on our channel where we go more into detail about the taxes on Airbnbs in Mexico. So if you search Mexico Airbnb on the MyLatinLife channel, that video should pop right up. And by the way, if you're not a resident of Mexico and you'd like to become a resident, that's what we do. We're an immigration firm, and we can help you become a resident of Mexico. We can help your whole family get residency as a plan B. It's pretty much a no-brainer thing to have. Cool. See you next time, and happy investing.